Young people, sure. Let older people, some of them anyway, a fair number of them, pass to retirement comfortably a little earlier than they otherwise would. I mean, you've got to think about every possible way to make getting through this crisis tolerable for the population, recognizing that a year, even 2 years from now, we are not going to be through it. The official forecasts say we're not going to go back to 5% unemployment till 2014.
The headline this week, recession unofficially ends as economy grows.
That means we're at the bottom. But from the standpoint of the population, the bottom is going to go on for a long time.
Didn't you recommend recently that anybody who wants a job should be able to get a job paid $8 an hour or something?
I think it's a very sensible idea. Why not have a large job corps involving, among other things, neighborhood conservation efforts or health home care efforts?
Shades of the New Deal, right?
Of course. Of course.
But when you talk like that, you immediately bring chills to the back of the deficit hawks who say, wait a minute, we can't afford what we're doing now. We're putting it all on our grandchildren's credit card. How can Jamie Galbraith be arguing for more deficit spending now?
With all respect to the deficit hawks, they don't understand the situation and they don't know what they're talking about in terms of federal finances. The United States is a large and powerful country, and it can, if it chooses, employ its workforce in a useful way. But the point I would make about jobs programs is that the alternative is not spending nothing. The alternative is keeping people on the dole, a term Roosevelt hated.
And Lyndon Johnson hated.
Lyndon Johnson. Keeping them on the dole, which is costly, but it's also debilitating to those people, and you don't get anything out of it from the standpoint of the country. The obstacle here is not federal finance. The federal government can finance what it wants to finance. It's, as I say, the most powerful financial entity in the world. The problem here is organizational. It's a matter of will. It's a matter of creating appropriate institutions that are in the public sector and incentives in the private sector to get certain jobs done. If we approach it with that frame of mind, we wouldn't be asking about the budget deficit. We'd be asking about the unemployment rate. We'd be asking about how we're doing in getting down, meeting our energy and our environmental goals.
So what is the fundamental question, the one question you think all of us should be thinking about right now?
Where do we want to be in 30 years' time? How do we get there? It's not a question of how do we return to full employment prosperity in 5 years, but how we solve the fundamental problems that we face in a way which gives us a generation of steady progress and living standards that people can accept, that they'll live with, that they'll be happy with, while at the same time achieving sustainability and reestablishing the American position as a leading and responsible country in the world, so that we are developing the technologies and the practices that other countries will then adopt, something which we have done very effectively for a century, but which we are certainly not doing now.
I want to show you something that resonates with what you're saying. I've been looking at it for a while now. It's an excerpt from a speech that Franklin Delano Roosevelt made in 1944 in the midst of war, a speech that not many people have seen. But take a look at this excerpt.
In our day, certain economic truths have become accepted as self-evident. A second Bill of Rights, under which a new basis of security and prosperity can be established for all, regardless of station or race or creed. Among these are the right to a useful and remunerative job in the industries or shops or farms or mines throughout the nation, the right to earn enough to provide adequate food and clothing and recreation, the right of every farmer to raise and sell his products at a return which will give him and his family a decent living, the right of every businessman, large and small, to trade in an atmosphere of freedom, freedom from unfair competition and domination by monopolies at home or abroad, the right of every family to a decent home, the right to adequate medical care and the opportunity to achieve and enjoy good health, the right to adequate protection from the economic fears of old age, sickness, accident, and unemployment, the right to a good education. All of these rights spell security. And after this war is won, we must be prepared to move forward in the implementation of these rights to new goals of human happiness and well-being. For unless there is security here at home, there cannot be lasting peace in the world.
What do you think about listening to that?
It's wonderful. It's splendid. It defined what we should have achieved in the last 50 years and in many ways what we still need to achieve. It's a test. It's a test for the country as a whole as to whether we have the capacity to state and pursue a truly public purpose. We've come through a generation where we have really denied the existence of a common good or a public purpose. And I think we've recognized that that path leads to collapse, the collapse that we've seen, and that the way out is to somehow reestablish for ourselves this vision of what we really could be.
James K. Galbraith, thank you for being with me again on The Journal.
My pleasure.